the sederant for this meeting of Clydesdale Area Committee held on the 6th of September 2023. So I can see that we have present Councillor Alec Allison, Councillor Ralph Barker, Councillor Poppy Corbett, Councillor Ross Gowland, Councillor Lindsay Hamilton. I have apologies from Councillor Mark Horsham, Councillor Ross Lambie. Do we have Councillor Richard Lockhart? No. We also have present Councillor Eileen Logan, Councillor Julia Mars, Councillor Ian McCallan, Councillor Catherine McClyman, and Councillor David Shearer. We also have a number of officers present today. I'll hand back to yourself, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. So the start of the agenda is number 1, the declarations of interest. Does anybody want to declare an interest? I believe we have a couple of items there, Carol. Councillor Mars on item 5A and E, and Councillor Gowland on item 5G. Does anybody else wish to declare an interest? Councillor Mars?
Apologies, Chair. I think you've covered my declaration, so thank you.
Thank you. Nobody else? Okay. So we've got the minutes of the previous meeting, pages 3 to 8. And do we approve those? For a seconder? Yep. Okay, thanks. Number 3 on the agenda is Police Scotland, the local policing annual update. And I'll hand over to Chief Inspector Graham McLaughlin and Inspector Tony Gallagher of Police Scotland. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Committee. Thank you very much for your invite to today's meeting. As mentioned, I'm Chief Inspector Graham McLaughlin. I am the Area Commander for Hamilton and Clydesdale. And I'm joined today by Inspector Tony Gallagher. He is the Area Commander, or sorry, should I say Area Inspector for Larkhall and Clydesdale also. As you'll no doubt be aware, if we could move on to the next slide as well, please. Thank you. In April this year, obviously, Lanarkshire Division introduced a new local policing plan, which went through the various stages of consultation. And there are 3 key priorities as part of that policing plan are protecting our community, safeguarding our citizens, and enhancing our service. So in order to do so in the Clydesdale area and to support that, locally, officers consist of 5 inspectors, 5 sergeants and 60 local response policing officers, supported and assisted by 8 community policing officers, as well as a specialist team known as the Davru and our Safer Communities Officer as well, all dedicated and committed to delivering on our promises and our priorities within the local policing plan. In order to do so, we do so through our partnership working. Local officers continue to engage with our partners in the community in order to share information to detect and deter crime, as well as to improve the local area. This can range from our low-level vandalisms, where graffiti is identified and removed through partners, to higher-level multi-agency meetings with social work, to have safety plans in place for vulnerable members of our community, and to ensure prevention action is taken with repeat offenders. We do so through events such as our Community Safety Hub meetings, which are weekly meetings with our local partners from the local authority, such as housing, antisocial investigation teams and Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, in order to identify problematic tenants, hotspots areas for joint tasking and a bid to decrease antisocial behaviour in the area. However, we must be recognising that the demand on policing is changing. There's been a significant reduction over a sustained period of time, which shows that roughly 20% of the demand in South Lanarkshire relates to crime. The majority of our incidents attended by Police Scotland relate to public protection, vulnerability and people in crisis. A lot of criminality is invisible to the public and is taking place online in terms of fraud and indecent images and or in private dwellings. And to put that in some context, in the local Clydesdale area, over the last year, the local officers have responded to 11,000 incidents in the area. That consisted of 221 missing persons, 863 concern for person reports. That's in comparison with 500 calls relating to disturbances and 200 calls relating to assaults. So we can clearly see the change and the shift in our demand. We must also be recognising as we go on that we face challenges relating to the budget cuts and to reduced officer numbers. However, please be reassured that we are committed to prioritising visible policing within our community. I'll now hand you over to Inspector Gallagher, who's going to talk through how we deliver that on a daily basis.
Thanks for that. That was a good bit of the presentation. Over now. As the Chief Inspector said there, certain priorities have been identified in terms of how we go about our policing Clydesdale and throughout the rest of Lanarkshire. It is now Clydesdale, as you're well aware, the expansion of the area is a big area from Douglas to Forth, really. As the Chief Inspector says, we have 10 officers dedicated to that from the community police officer side, 2 of whom work from Lark Hall. They cover the Kirkmahill, Lesmahago areas, and the rest of Clydesdale is covered from Lanark Police Office, where you have 6 officers working from there. So again, as addressed at the start of the presentation there, we have 10 plainclothes officers, if you like, for want of a better way of putting it, who attend some of our priorities in terms of some of the specific targeting of risk that's emerging within our area, including Clydesdale, some of which I'll come on to speak about on this. So protecting the community and safeguarding citizens was some of our priorities identified in our new policing plan. And first and foremost, I suppose, the thing I wanted to touch on was prevention of youth disorder. I'm sure the councillors and the chair will be aware of the recent change in legislation over the last few years in terms of youth offending and what's considered to be offending that is tackled via the justice system in terms of age of children, the increased age of criminality, if you like. So that kind of put more an emphasis onto how we engage with youth in the preventative as well as the proactive sense. So, not to labour the point, but resources, as you've already heard, are increasingly being reduced year upon year, as it is. Unfortunately, that's the climate that we're working in, so we have to get smarter about how we work. And that means that our partnership working with South Lanarkshire Council and other partners has to be really increased. And some of the evidence in which you see on the slide here, I'm not actually going to go through and read verbatim from each slide. It's there for those to read, and I understand that the presentation will be available following this meeting to anyone that's looking for it. So I'll try and talk generally about some of the issues here, as you can see I've highlighted. So our work with South Lanarkshire Council, with the housing, etc., extends to the antisocial investigation teams. As you can see, the ASIC teams here in the first example of using the housing teams. And that's about engaging with people who are intelligent, tell us, and just by merit of the frequency of their offending, that they're the young people that we consider are at risk. They themselves of being involved in criminality or subject to criminality. So we have been engaging with them on a continual basis, and that's a big part of the CPT work that we do. As you can see there, some of that takes the form of parent alert letters that get sent out to the parents, because the responsibility as much as the children will lie with the parents in a behavioural sense. So we are looking at that and targeting that. And those letters are backed up by joint visits by police and also the council as well, where ASIC teams in there. So as you can see from the first plan there, 7 youths were referred recently since November in the case there, and we have a further, there is more as that, with unacceptable behaviour notices that have been sent out as well. So that work is ongoing. So, initiative-wise, move the goalposts. I know you would have heard about that probably previously from the East Kilbride side of things in Rutherglen. I think it kind of started there with South Lanarkshire Council funding was put towards this football initiative for the youth to engage in. So you can see we've brought it over into the Lanark area. Now Tesco itself, for the Lanark Council, I'm sure they'll be aware of the complaints about the youth offending around Tesco. There have been a number of different initiatives tried by the proprietors at Tesco, etc., in terms of allowing the youth to come in and use their Wi-Fi and things like that. And we've tried different things with them, and we've had limited success back forward. It remains an issue for us going forward. We look to continue to target and try and deal with our partners. But you can see, move the goalposts was really well attended by the young people around there, so much so that the feedback from the staff, even within the Tesco as well, about the decrease in the nuisance behaviour, if you like, for want of being putting it, was markedly noticeable. So that was a really good initiative that we hope to actually continue and get more funding as we go forward. And I've really asked you to get involved with supporting that if we can in the future. Again, Carluke Leisure Centre, as you can see there, we had some issues around there with youth offending. We worked with Carluke High School and basically identifying it with the head teacher to assist us to identify some of the offenders that were getting flagged up in that. And we had some involvement towards the end of the school year into the summer, which is an important time, as I'm sure you'll understand, to work with the kids. So, I think I said by June there, as I was trying to remember the date, but it's right in front of me, by June there, we were kind of sending out parental alert letters basically to let the parents know, whether kids may be involved in on the periphery of antisocial behaviour. So it was a preventative measure to get involved with that. So, as I said, just very briefly, It'll Cost You campaign is a government campaign. Just in the last paragraph there, it's essentially targeted at people who are buying alcohol for kids outside licensed premises, etc. We've been getting into all licensed premises throughout the Clydesdale area and engaging with the proprietors there as well, engaging with the kids outside there, and that goes to alcohol and vapes as well is another big emerging issue that we have within the area. So that works quite well in terms of engaging with the licensees, if you like, or the staff members within these different organisations, and you'll see posters going up in terms of what the penalties will be for persons involved in that. So alcohol lies at the root of a lot of the youth offending that we have, and we were speaking earlier on about Lanark High Street has figured quite a lot in terms of disorder towards the Blue Triangle also, not just the kind of members from the Blue Triangle themselves. That is actually on the low side of offending that we get, maybe somebody passing through there, and we have some issues with that. But in the main, a lot of the issues we've had around there have been through youth offending. We have had some serious crime around robberies from the youths there as well. But however, then the plus side to that, if I can say, is that these are all detections. These are all ones that have been resolved through arrest. And we know the people involved, we're targeting actively the people involved. So probably just to finish off on this page bit in here is around the CCTV aspects, which Councillor were talking about to start with there. So there is planned CCTV for the bus station in Lanark, which has historically caused us issues around youth offending up there, and also up in Smileham as well. So we have not necessarily drug issue, youth disorder issues up there, but drug dealing issues, etc. up there, and also some neighbour disputes that escalate into more serious violence. So we're looking to have the CCTV sited on there. But yeah, High Street, definitely. We had a wee chat beforehand, which other people here will not be part to do, but we'll certainly be looking to support that going forward. It's certainly in line with our experience of offending. Just the next slide, please. So our Safer Communities Department in the main will has taken responsibility for kind of overseeing inputs at schools, etc. Due to recent rationalisation, for want of a better way of putting it, that some of that tasking now falls to our community police officers. So in the picture here you have one who's actually moved on there, David Smith, to the intelligence side of things, but Ben Watson remains and is supported now by a temporary measure we have in there as well, just our cop in there for the CPT covers Kirkmuir Hill, Bigger, etc. So that's them in doing their school talk. Clever Never Goes in this particular one, I think it was, where again that's around inputs to the kids at primary level, as you can see, around the dangers of abduction, both out in the big wide world and also online. So that covers a a few different areas in there, I suppose, for in old money for some of us at a certain age. Stranger danger, I think, was the way we would have put it for before. So as you can see with the schools throughout the Clydesdale area, we've got officers in there, and that extends to various inputs on all different sides of things, and down to kind of, I know the council do more of the bike support inputs, but we also assist with that as well and go in there with the quad bikes that we have. So as you can see, the importance of that engagement with the youth at a really early stage is something that we are really pushing for just now. So if we just move on to the next slide. I included this one just because, there's been a lot of good work going on here with Scottish Fire and Rescue. In terms, you'll recall I think it was last year, where there was a number of fatalities, not just around the Clydesdale, but also further afield in Scotland. And it became apparent, perhaps we haven't had the good weather this year that would actually make it conducive to going into the water. But certainly, the dangers there were very, very real dangers in terms of the kids accessing water spaces in here. We've seen it, I think, down in Stonehouse and further afield through Clydesdale, some of the incidents we were experiencing. So water safety events were held with in conjunction with Scottish Fire and Rescue, which were very well received, and joint visits with residents. Also, Sergeant Richard Jury, who's based at Lanark and covering Clydesdale, had arranged himself for additional signage, etc., to be sourced and placed in certain areas where there was risk. So that as we can see from some of the stats that were provided by the Chief Inspector to start with, the perception that we deal with crime primarily is far removed from reality. So these are some of the other things that are taking up police officers' time, and worthy time as well. I've got to add into that. So I thought it was worthwhile adding that into the work that went on jointly between ourselves and Scottish Fire and Rescue. And to date, thankfully, I'm not aware of any issues we've had this year. Again, today's weather aside, I think the rest of the summer's not been so good, so perhaps that's helped also. So with the next slide, please. So violent crime, we are experiencing some of this, which is kind of localised to some areas, and I've put down some examples here around that I've had inquiries from, I know from councillors as well previously, around some of the issues. So as you can see here from the first one in here, it's really licensed premises we were involved for in this as well, where disturbances and affecting kids, by 2 young kids being assaulted in here. So the cops that we have, albeit they're a small resource, I was suggesting for the remainder of this presentation, it's not by a kind of mistake or coincidence that what I'm trying to say here is they're punching well above their weight for their numbers, and the quality of what you get for people that know their area and know their individuals speaks out volumes. So this particular individual who was involved in this and was involved in the assault of 2 young schoolgirls at the time, the guys took it upon themselves to ensure that he was given some robust policing attention. He was a threat to the community, and as you can see, there were further offences identified in relation to him elsewhere, including serious assault, shoplifting offences, public order, and domestic offending as well. So they were successful in getting a warrant for him, and when he went to court, successful outcome, bail refused for that one, and threat removed from the community. So that one, of course, we can't get any specifics of in this, but that was a real good bit of work by the cops involved in that, resulting in, as I said, that threat being removed. So Braxfield Terrace in Lanark, the next one, I mentioned this specifically because I know there has been some issues and some input from councillors around concerns there. This is concerned in the main with a few individuals in there who obviously I cannot name, but we are well aware of. We have arrested them, we've presented them before court, and we've got bail conditions for them. Now, those bail conditions, I know seeing someone getting back out of court, perhaps shortly after some serious offending in some cases here, which has involved the use of weapons, etc. But however, what we look for from the courts in these instances is bail conditions. Bail conditions better allow us to police them in terms of whether that's 7 to 7 curfews or whether that's bail conditions prevent them from entering particular loci. So we successfully gained those conditions in terms of some of the persons involved in there, and we're actively on a continual basis engaged in policing them, and we will continue to do so. So the information that we have is shared with our colleagues in housing and our ASIC teams and our ASBO teams, and that's done on a weekly basis through our hub meetings we have with them. So these are all discussed on a continual basis, and it's a multi-pronged attack in terms of trying to remove some of the issues and some of the problematic people we have in these areas. So that work is ongoing, and I mention that because I do know that some councillors do have an interest in that. So just to finish off, December, I mentioned this because there was some issues around a male who was primarily it started in Lark Hall, at the school in Lark Hall, was just distributing basically far right political materials. He progressed to Stonehouse and then up into Clydesdale himself. So that individual is now subject to a myriad of bail conditions in terms of what he can actually distribute, which is, I think, nothing really. And we are involved in policing him and with our colleagues over the other side of the borders into Lothian as well, who have similar problems. So I mention that because people will be aware of it. He remains part of our attention, part of some of our more specialist people who are cited in Garcosh, are well cited in this gentleman. So just to finish off, this one, I wanted to bring the next one up about Colburn, because this one didn't necessarily get reported as a crime. It was going on for some time. We remember the community in Colburn was causing some issues with kids. There was mention of kids getting chased with weapons, etc., knives, etc. And it wasn't really, we weren't getting reports as such coming through. We understood that this particular person had some mental health, as it turned out, has some mental health issues as well. Our community policing team at Lark Hall, covering that area, Ben Watson, had taken that on with the sergeant, and basically our direct action, which kind of followed that, led to the arrest of him in a court appearance and undertaking again in bail conditions. That was a real kind of bit of evidence about how intelligence coming from our community, how that assists us and how we can get that nice and early, and when it's happening we'll go in and we'll do something about it and be seen to be doing something about it. So that was a real good outcome for that, and I was one of the leaders for the Colburn community that had identified that initially. And I'll go on to talk about some of the work in terms of surgeries that are ongoing just now, which is bearing a lot of fruit as well. So if you don't mind moving on, please, next slide. So again, partnership working. I just want to kind of breeze as much as I can through some of this. So the Chief Inspector has already given you an indication, an idea of much of our time is taken up in the pursuit and recovery of missing persons within the area. Looked after and accommodated children accounts for quite a bit of that. We have through Carluke through to into Clydesdale, we have quite a number of establishments in there, and what happens is particularly some of the private establishments receive some young kids from inner city areas down south who are relocated to Clydesdale. I understand the reasoning for that, as it takes them away from that inner city threat that's there to them, some of his community alliance stuff as well, drug activities and serious crime. One of the things that becomes apparent in this is the need to actually risk assess in terms of when it's passed to us. What we need to see is what risk assessment has actually been taking place by social services in the care homes about the care of these kids, and what access do the kids have to transport once they're placed in an area. It may well be that placing someone within a Carluke facility or whatever near a train station isn't a very good thing in terms of that. But we have officers now engaging with all of these premises who are dedicated to those premises, in particular kids who are problematic within those premises. So that work is ongoing just now, and we have further meetings in terms of us having a look at. I want to get to a position where we are actually assessing the risk that's been identified through social services and the care homes themselves, to make sure that the care regime, if you like, for want of a better way of putting it, that's in place for these kids is robust to the point that it's actually protecting them from what they've been taken into care for. So there's a lot of work ongoing in terms of the kind of looked after and accommodated child community that we have up there. So I do know that the Scottish Government are obviously having a look at this as well, obviously through their kind of, I suppose, their care system, and looking to hold those who are responsible for that to account. I think at a local level we're already doing that. So that I included that for that reason. Again, just to kind of say that the work that's ongoing, that's not perhaps crime related, but takes up a lot of our time. And again, you can see from the next part in here around the Promise conference, that leads on for the first paragraph there about cared for children. That was attended by the divisional commander as well as our local officer, with an input to that as well, just to kind of emphasise the importance of it. So I think that the rest of the slides in there are more in the same kind of vein for that, that I'll not go into. But the fortnightly surgery you see at Colburn there, just at the bottom of that, that's something I'm looking to extend out a wee bit more into the Clydesdale community, because that really worked in terms of that free exchange of information, intelligence that we were getting, and immediate action that followed that actually dealt with community concerns and provided an explanation in some cases about what's happening in real time to people. That was a great reassurance and feedback. That was really good. I expect that we'll try and roll that out in Lesmahago quite shortly as well. Next slide, please. So one of the probably the biggest number of emails I'll get, and some of the biggest tasking that'll come out, is around speeding, driving within our areas. Recently, we've had, or over the past probably year, I've had issues around identified Fourth Village, Thankerton, around about the milk hut up there. I think there was Councillor McCallum, I think it was, that raised some issues around that, speeding, but also I think persons perhaps taking drugs and driving as well, which we put staff to. Agricultural vehicle speeding are up near Boat Road, with complaints around that, and Crossford and A72 for obvious reasons because of the school there, and Kirkfield Bank in relation to some of the 20 mile per hour limits there. So the school engagements earlier on there, you've seen two of the cops. That was two of our probationers are out engaging with the schools around parking issues at schools where it's leading to dangers to kids due to traffic trying to access the school and by the school at times when parents are parking there and basically taking up large areas of the road. So we've engaged with the schools around that, engaged with the parents around that, that particular issue. And the speeding part we have deployed in various areas with the traffic department as well, to some of these areas that I've mentioned. And as you can see here, some of the initiatives around the horses which were flagged, Operation Lose the Blinkers and Close Pass were for horses and cyclists respectively, and there we've managed to do them through probably the Lark Hall up into Clydesdale as well for both those initiatives. So they're pretty well received again. I know a lot of people have their viewpoints on cyclists, which are viewed quite a lot as well, but however, those in the main were successful campaigns. So we'll continue to do our high visibility patrols. We will deploy with our speed guns. Speed guns are they're a short-term measure in terms of trying to fix a problem, because very, very quickly in deploying after that, people become aware of your presence, and very, very quickly it becomes just a pointless exercise. So what we try to do is move about as much as we can when they're deployed in that way, and stop and engage drivers also. So we've done that in some of the areas that we've mentioned, continue to do that. I think probably you will be aware that we did source an additional speed gun resource from the Clydesdale community as well, which we utilised and managed to get additional members of our team trained up in, so that we have a better opportunity to get them out and about down there. So I try and get them out on a weekly basis, at least get them programmed in for an hour or two in the morning at some locations that are causing us problems. So that will continue into the future, and I do understand that I will receive, because of the nature of the area that it is, I will see more issues around the speeding issue. But just to finish on that, I have engaged previously with the Camera Safety Partnership around deployment of their vans, etc. But, and I'm sure some of the councillors will be aware, I've had the discussion previously before, their deployment is really dependent upon stats, accident stats, etc. Crime stats for speeders or whatever, and in the main for the area, there's not an area that's actually jumping out as a specific problem. So that's the challenge there about how to get those services involved. So the Clydesdale, just the next slide, please. Oh, sorry, we're on this next slide. Yeah. So the quad bikes, very quickly, I'll go through this because we've utilised these in many ways since we've got them. These were community funded through Clydesdale, through the landowners meetings, which we still attend. And, the success of these has been to the point, actually, where we've now got them up Wishaw area as well. Now we've got a facility up there, probably another, I can't remember how much that is, bikes, probably another 6 quad bikes up there as well. Have been funded in trailers, etc. for them. So, and a lot of other neighbouring divisions are coming to us asking us, how did we go about sourcing them, how did we get them? So the bikes are deployed in terms of our community events that take place. You'll see them at some of the music events from Fairnagair upwards. You'll see them at the Lanark Lannerman's Day. They've been deployed in there. So really their use is just exploded, and the requests for the services of those are far and wide. The youth disorder, community events, etc., as you can see in the thing in here, deployed in all manner of means. So they are what I say a success story all round. The limitations are on, I suppose, the distances that we have to travel in Clydesdale to actually get to some of the areas that we need to deploy in. That remains a challenge, but the division did invest in a trailer for the quad bikes, which is now allowing us to get our officers safely, which is the important thing, to some destinations, because travelling on some of these main arterial routes on a quad bike isn't safe. So we've managed to get that facility. So going ahead, I'm hoping to get more use from that. Just the next slide, please. So you'll probably recognise that windmill, is that what you call him, the wind fan? You'll probably recognise that, won't you, from that's up at Dalcandy. That's one of the co-ops, so they were up there deployed in the wind farm up there. So we've done some days actions up basically around about the wild farms, Dalcandy, Hagshaw, and more recently up at Gallawhistle, where they've got some problems with the first two main problems are folk coming in and using them for illegal quad biking. So to challenge some of that, deploy and try and get these people wherever they're starting off, which is in the main usually Colburn. So we're trying to engage with them going forward. It's been not too bad over this period of time that we've had just recently experienced over the summer, which is our busier time. We have engaged with landowners, some of whom have closed off land that they were previously facilitating use of. So this is an ongoing thing. Some of it locally in Colburn, who engaged in people in Colburn and use of their bikes, and also parents involved in that as well. So we're kind of that's a job ongoing just now. The Gallawhistle one is probably a bit more. We're getting into millions of pounds of damage getting caused by persons coming in and stripping the insides of the mills here and taking some high value metals away that are really the grid goes down and it's at a cost of millions of pounds just for that reason at all. So we've got some plan ahead for days of action up there as well, which the quad bikes will be used for. And I suppose going forward with that, I will be looking to engage with the landowners around future funding to see what else we can get around more bikes perhaps. Certainly the division have made an investment around communication equipment, which is helpful for us to be able to talk to one another whilst we're on these quad bikes and out, and the trailer, etc. So that's something that I've got tasking ongoing with the landowners to try and source that, take that money towards that. So I'm always open to any suggestions that anyone else may have, councillors, on that subject. Last couple of parts I'm going to finish off with here. Drugs. As I said, some of the things here are there for you to read on here. Some of our kind of successes in here. But yeah, drugs, very much our focus just now. You'll have the wider context around drugs death in Scotland, which you'll see have been reduced, and subsequently I believe the same in Lanarkshire as well. So that's the kind of preventative side, which is very important, and we're trying to target those involved in Class C drugs, cannabis, Valium, etc., which are the main, seem to be our information tells us that's some of the main causes, some of the drugs death we've got. So where we might be targeting some of the heavier Class A drugs, it's just as important that we target those Class C, and we're trying to do that as well, as you can see with some of the results here. So our DAVRU team, which is our Division of Alcohol Violence Reduction Unit, for those who don't know, are heavily involved in that. They were one team since the Chief Inspector attended. We have a look at it in terms of specialism. So that's now split into two. One is a drugs-specific team, and one is an acquisitive crime team, which we'll just come on to shortly. So as you can see, the results are ongoing. I'm focusing just now in the Kirkmere Hill area. I'm going to look in there. I've got some action plans coming up from the cops that I'm looking to deploy now. So that very much is my focus just now. And anecdotally, I suppose some of the information that we have coming back from intelligence is that such has been the success in some areas towards Lanark, etc., like that, that's actually causing some other issues where people are now not getting the supply that they're used to or have been used to in the past, and it's having a knock-on effect in terms of violence, etc., which again, as I say, I would say where it has been experienced, it's usually been accompanied by a detection on the back of that as well. So we do know the people involved in this. And just to kind of, in the drug side, you can see there are other engagement processes going on with people who are Turning Point, people who are still using drugs, etc. Turning Point engages with them, with the police and the chief inspectors more involved within the beacons. Also, another one which I have a couple of leaflets here for anyone that wants to take that away with them and give it, which kind of involves more of the younger persons involved in that kind of side of taking drugs, etc. So there are those engagement and preventative measures ongoing with our proactive work that's ongoing there. As I said, that's just some of the different examples that I just wanted to highlight in there and speak about. So if you move next slide, please. So last couple of ones here. Just again, this is around I suppose some of the real threats in Clydesdale for me recently that have emerged. Maybe not so much here, but we have had over the last month instances, not just within Clydesdale, but nationally, across national borders, across police borders, about organised crime groups coming into these areas and being involved in high value thefts, etc. So this has taken a fair bit of work with the CI here and freeing up resources to allow us to put out proactive deployments during night shifts, etc., which have resulted in a lot of related crime being reported around driving offences, drugs offences, vehicles getting stopped during night shifts, patrol times, but also what it's all resulted in is essentially, for the time being, the kind of cessation of activity in terms of the persons who were targeting high value vehicles within the area of Clydesdale, around Lanark and further afield. So that will be ongoing. I'm sure we haven't heard the last of them, so our guard is up and we're forward planning. We'll continue to forward plan around our preventative patrol, but also our social media put out in terms of making people aware what the threats are, what people are looking for, and how to protect their properties and their vehicles from these people that are coming out. They are actually very well organised teams that are coming out in terms of both how they go about their business and the apparatus they use to get into cars and how they get into houses. So that's something that locally our plainclothes teams deal with, but also on a larger scale we have the divisional proactive teams involved in this as well, targeting them both, working with our colleagues down south and up to the east of the country as well. Again, you've got some search warrants, things around property theft, etc. We do have commercial properties getting targeted, waterworks, etc., theft of plant equipment. Again, we have quite a bit of success in terms of recoveries, in terms of detections, but that continues because that threat will continue just because of the financial climate that we're in just now. So our acquisitive team, as you will see and go on, as you can see further on the next slides, have been absolutely spot on, driven personally by, in some cases you can see on here, by their desire to protect the vulnerable elderly people who are being targeted by bogus callers, fraudsters, and I've included these just to to give you an idea of the extent or the diverse nature of some of the crime that's going on in terms of acquisitive stuff. So just to finish off that last paragraph in terms of LPARC, our reduction in terms of offenders and the cost of rural crime within our own area in Clydesdale, we are probably, or I think have seen the largest decrease in our area. We are by far the best in terms of what we're doing. So I would just like to leave that with our only reduction understand in the UK. Is that right? Only, yeah. So I think we're doing something right, and that's testament to the officers that are deploying here. As I said, they've got that personal investment in there as well. So just the last slide just gives you some more examples of what they are doing and who they're trying to protect and what drives them in terms of why, especially why you become a police officer in the first place. You can see vulnerable people, vulnerable parts of the community being targeted with the successes, as you can see, being put out before you. I'll not go through them all. I know I'm kind of going on a wee bit. I didn't intend to, but so I'll leave you to read that and see, and just move into the questions, I suppose, next. See what we get into.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you both for your presentation. We'll move over, and it's good to hear it from a local perspective as well and get some detail behind what you're doing. It's commendable. I think you're 48% reduction. That's absolutely brilliant. So well done. Does anybody have any questions or comments they would like to make? Ian McCallum.
Thanks, Chair. Can I also thank both of you for the presentation, but probably more importantly for all your efforts and the efforts of your staff, which I know is a very challenging time. I'm aware there's some very effective specialist units, but can you advise us of the current shift system employed in the Clydesdale area, and what is the level of resource employed in those shifts during a normal 24-hour period? I'm obviously concerned about the Clydesdale East area, but keen to hear of the coverage in the rest of Clydesdale and Larkhall, please. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly, Councillor. In answer to that question, obviously, we have various facets to our police operations and deployment. So the response policing, who work the main and probably most well-known shift pattern, is there are 5 different shifts, worked through obviously the early, lates and night shifts. So for covering the Clydesdale area, that is probably consists of, there's an inspector oversees it as part of the whole subdivision. There is a sergeant specific to the area, who then will regularly deploy up to 12 officers to cover the Clydesdale area. They are then supported by our community policing officers. I say, so that breakdown works out as 2 per multi-member ward, so there's 8 to cover the Clydesdale area. They support them through day shifts and late shifts, working up until 8 in the morning through to 10 o'clock at night. Then we have our specialist crime teams that Inspector Gallagher's touched on. Again, they follow the same shift patterns as community policing, but vary them depending on who's on and when there's a requirement. And they're the ones that focus on our substance use and obviously are acquisitive. Wider than that, obviously, if there is ever a need to reach further into the subdivision, then we support Lanark and Clydesdale with officers from Hamilton. There are other departments divisionally, such as CID, are obviously deployed in the area as and when, and provide support that way as well. And if need be, we can go further into nationalist resources as and when, if there are any upcoming issues or trends that we feel the need to bring in additional officers.
That's helpful. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Ralph Barker. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that presentation. It comes over strongly, so relatively few staff to cover a big area and to cover so many things that we wouldn't normally think of as being crime. Certainly the mention of runaways, come across police trying to find runaways from specialist care homes in the Abington Hills with very little mobile reception, how many staff and how long they have to deal with that, which we perhaps wouldn't think of normally as crime. The community police, I mean, they do know what's going on, but I mean, we do, and I mean, this is in terms of thanks. A single female in Carnworth was being targeted, tyre sabotage and worse. It wasn't a general thing. It was just this one person being targeted, and action has been taken by community police. The worry being that female thought that she had to come and speak to councillors before anything was actually done. That's not to say it wasn't done, but effectively for her before anything was done. Can I just mention, I see far worse things happening in other parts of Clydesdale. You get these surges of, sometimes call it youth disorder, because there's now just a spate of throwing stones at passing cars, and you can see where that can go. I mean, it's not just a bit of disorder, and I know full well the community police check social media. They know what's happening as well, and just that constituents have been disappointed when the police patrol has turned up and apparently turned a blind eye to. In one case, somebody who was going to put their head over the parapet and be named, throwing broken glass onto the road while a police patrol car was going past, and the patrol car didn't stop at all. So they will have their reasons of how they're going to do things, but it doesn't look good to constituents at times. If you have any advice, certainly for councillors in that sort of situation, I'd be very grateful. Thanks very much.
No, thanks, Councillor. In relation to the first point and the female, obviously you mentioned it felt the need to come to you. I'm aware of those circumstances, and it wasn't a case of it required a councillor and kind of correspondence to come in for action to be taken. It's sometimes an ongoing course of conduct. There isn't sufficient evidence in each and individual case, and it's about constantly working away and building on that. I understand how that can lead to frustrations and a perceived lack of action from people as well. But as you say, that wasn't the case, and in a sense that matter has kind of been, I believe, resolved at the time being. I don't think those issues are ongoing anymore. As I mentioned, there's a lot of airtime spent policing in people's houses due to online issues, matters, frauds, indecent sharing of images, which takes up a lot of time. And then when the officers return to do the internet investigation, that takes a lot of paperwork in the office as well. But I'm disappointed to hear that that's the perception of officers driving by. I'm clear with my officers what I expect, particularly when it comes to antisocial behaviour, youth disorder, where we have complaints and issues for a certain area. We target it. We go there on the key times, the key nights, and the direct instruction is get out of the car, go and walk about, go and see who's about, go and engage with people. So if you have any other issues like that, I'm quite happy to take them off the table and talk about it. But that is the direction local officers of Clydesdale are given, and that is what I expect of them. So I apologise for that. I'll take that on board, and I say if you want to discuss further, I'm more than happy to do so.
Right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much again for your presentation. Like other councillors says, it was very useful, and it's good to have an overview on what's happening. And it's good to see there's lots of stuff going on with schools and stuff like that as well. I suppose it's just a bit of a plea from the a councillor in Clydesdale West alongside Eileen, and I think David and Poppy are probably on line as well. But we don't know who. I don't know who our local community officers are. We've not really had any dealings with them, which might be a good thing, but when you actually do need to find out who they are, then it's quite difficult to get in touch. So it would be quite good if we could have touch base with them, and because we did have a good relationship with Gordon and Alan before they moved on. So just if it would be good if you could facilitate us even just getting an email address from them, then that would be really useful. Thanks, because they do a great, and I can remember previously when we didn't have community officers, and that was the difference the local community officers made is massive. But so thanks.
Yeah, just to very quick answer to that one is I'm sorry about that. You should have them because myself and I certainly instructed the sergeants to make that available to all, following the previous elections as well, to make sure that we covered everybody that was involved, perhaps coming in new also. So apologies for that. I'll make sure that's sent out if it's not been already and you receive that, and remind you of Mon, Tony.Gallagher at scotland.police.uk. Thank you.
I have nobody else ready to ask any questions. Sorry, Ross. Thanks.
Yeah, no, but just like all the other councillors, thanks for that very accurate report. It was very helpful. Just on the quad bike issue in Colburn, which has been long running for quite a long time, can I ask what, I suppose, are the specific actions that you're doing? I know you touched on it a little bit in the presentation, but I know at Colburn Community Council and at various different constituents, it's been a concern that's been raised for quite some time. And I actually think the issue is a lot of, it's not necessarily just children, it's actually adults, men who are congregating in very large groups on some fields and tearing up land, and actually sometimes harassing people at different times. And I know recently I had an update about it, but it feels like it's long run for quite some time. And I do know in the presentation was also the Lanarkshire Partnership Against Rural Crime. Can I ask, I haven't heard of that group before. It looked like it was farmers and different groups of people, but if you could let me know about that would be great.
Yeah, certainly. On the quad bikes is kind of long and weary been a problem across the entire of Lanarkshire, and not just Lanarkshire division as well. You speak to people across the country and even down into England. There are two elements of it. There are some people that's their passion, that's their hobby. But actually locally, we don't have anywhere for them to go. There's one site, I think, within Lanarkshire, which is a fair drive away for quite a lot of people and quite a considerable cost every time they would want to go out and do it. So there's an element of engagement round about it. There's an element of, over the years, we have explored a number of different options and trying to find land and secure land, but because of the liability risks that come around with it, that's a kind of a preventative measure, which is kind of almost off the board. Obviously, the local officers and the quad bikes will go there, they will do that engagement and that disruption as and where they can do. Continually feed it in is what I would ask. We would obviously try to fit it in and target it at the times and things that are relevant given the demands that are on them. So more than happy to keep working away on that. And again, that's part of what the quad bikes are there for. The one issue that comes with any kind of form of kind of off-road bike is if they make off, we won't pursue. That's a forced policy. So that's quite a common action when we deploy into an area and they see us. So a lot of community intelligence coming back in is to tell us maybe who these people are. Maybe we can target them in other ways and address them and deal with it in another manner. So, but we'll continue to work away with that. And if you want to share more details, Councillor, I'm quite happy to do so and target that. The second point, the Lanarkshire Partnership Against Rural Crime, that's been established now for a number of years. And obviously when I took over last year, I've kind of inherited it. I am the chair of it. So obviously it is designed, it feeds off what is known as the SPART, the Scottish Partnership Against Rural Crime. And there are multiple different partnerships across Scotland. And the aim is, it's a collection of police, partners, people in the rural community, council, North and South Lanarkshire, environmental health. We look at a whole host of things which are classed as rural crime. How do we disrupt them, deter them, prevent them? So certainly over the last year, and the figures that Tony mentioned there in the slideshow, Scotland, the Lanarkshire Partnership, or the partnerships against rural crime across the whole of Scotland, are the only ones in the UK that have resulted in a decrease in the cost. It went from a 2.6 million financial cost down to 1.4 million in the last year. That's about a 48% reduction for us. And according to the newsletter, everywhere else has increased by roughly 50% or more. That comes down to the dedication of the officers kind of in Clydesdale. It comes down to some of the information sharing and idea sharing between all those involved. But what we are looking to do on that as well, and there'll be some stuff comes out, that the Partnership Against Rural Crime National Week is the 18th to the 25th of September. There'll be a lot more information and things publicised during that time. There are some open events and roadshows with members, including myself, attending places like as the kind of cattle market. And there's a lot of kind of joint partnership working initiatives ongoing there. But again, if you're quite happy to take it off table, and I can kind of share some more information around about it. But ultimately, the aim is to disrupt and minimise the impact of rural crime.
Thank you. I don't have any more questions. Tony.
Just to kind of come in again, just on the Colburn side, just the specific start of that again. So, well aware that the person, there's two different aspects to persons using the bikes. Are those that will come up as far as down south to come up and use some of the areas up and around Colburn. Colburn's usually an access point for somebody to go to other areas as well. They'll stop off there. But there is another issue where you've got the local people, local youths that are using them. I've attended meetings myself up in Colburn with regards to it, and there is a kind of split opinion there as well about, as the Chief Inspector said, it's a pastime that some like to engage in, and there seems to be a bit of a split viewpoint on that in the community. Some say, well, you know, that's what they're doing, they're not causing any harm, but some of the main aspects of that was around the use of the bikes to actually get through Colburn and public roadworks, networks, etc. So I've made the point that if those are unlicensed bikes, etc., then we will stop them and we will take those bikes whenever we get the opportunity. There are specific people who have been identified within Colburn that engage in quad biking, etc. We have visited them, we've doorstepped them. They've been leafleted in terms of educational side of it, and we'll continue to target them. One of the issues that we do have in that regardless, we do have at times some photographs of people on them. Now, in terms of crime, identity is the central aspect of that. You need to identify the person with whom is committing that particular crime at the time. Now, if they're wearing a helmet or something like that, it may be quite obvious to them that that's the person that they know stays in a certain area or in a house at a certain time, and we certainly will believe that and go to that house as we have done. But when it comes to a court kind of sense and doing that, then the identity of that person isn't necessarily as easy to kind of prove when they're wearing helmets or, you know, a specific piece of clothing that you might be able to say belongs to them. So that there are some difficulties in actually prosecution around that. But we'll continue to attend up in Colburn. We'll continue to engage. I know, I hope he doesn't mind me name dropping him here as well, but George Greenshields is quite proactive up there in terms of, you know, engaging with us on that aspect. So as I said, we have our surgeries in Colburn now that will be going on fortnightly. So hopefully from that we get more intelligence and we can be a wee bit more direct in how we deal with them. But as I said, there's a wider issue, not only in Colburn, but yeah, there's something to get the bottom to. As the Chief Inspector said, we'll continue to deploy and maybe target a wee bit better. But I think our intelligence needs to get a bit better there as well. But that can be done through our engagement with the community and our surgeries.
Thanks very much. I'd like to thank you both once again and for your ability to be able to answer all the questions that were put to you today and comments. Most comments were positive. So thank you once again, and you can leave whenever you like. I'm sure you've got plenty to do. We'll continue with the committee. So number 4 is the Community Partnership Board update, pages 9 to 16. So we've got James Crumless and Louise Williamson from the Community Development team who will speak to this report. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Committee. Just want to introduce myself and my colleague, Louise. So I'm James Crumless. I'm a Community Development Officer with the Community Engagement team to the Council, and Louise is my team. She's also a Community Development Officer, specifically for neighbourhood planning within the Clydesdale area. So thanks for inviting us along. So I hope you'd all had a chance to have a look at the paper. I'm just going to summarise it, really. So we've just come along just to sort of highlight about the community partnerships and introduce the area committee to them, for those of you who don't know about them. So we we also want to highlight as well that they're community-led, and the chairs are basically community members who are volunteering to run the groups. What I'd also like to highlight as well, excuse me, my throat's going again, that we are not here to speak on behalf of the Clydesdale Community Partnership, just more to highlight their existence and current progress has been reported to the Community Planning Partnership Board, which is meeting today as well at the same time. Also, in terms of the first two sections, we'd like to offer a broker a link between the area committees and the partnership going forward. So in terms of the section 3 and 4, so the community partnerships bring together many local neighbourhood groups, some of them Louise supports, and also community councils in the main. At the moment, there's Clydesdale is one of the two that are established, so Cambuslang and Rutherglen is the other one that's established. The other two, for East Kilbride and Hamilton, are under development. And again, they're probably going to follow sort of similar makeup in terms of community councils and neighbourhood planning groups and other stakeholder groups for the areas. So the community partnerships also, they're there. The purpose is that they're partners within the Community Planning Partnership Board, and the chairs of the community partnerships, both Clydesdale and Cambuslang and Rutherglen, sit on the Community Planning Partnership Board as well, so they go along. There's also reports produced for the group. I support that side of things, and the reports go to the Community Planning Partnership Board. So yeah, I mean, again, we at the moment our team have got an administration role, but in terms of the actual decision making and going forward in terms of the priorities the community partnership want to achieve, it's down to them what they decide to do. So section 5 sort of outlines like the current areas of interest and development and activity. And note as well, like there's lived experience funds which go towards, there's money from last year which has gone towards both the established groups, and there's also money from this year's budget as well. So they'll be able to undertake their own engagement with communities, both through the respective groups as well, and then identify local priorities. There is plans, as you probably can see, about a development session. Cambuslang and Rutherglen are going to do the same, but it's reviewing where they are just now and looking at local priorities. One of the big ones at the moment you're probably not surprised about is transport. So an example would be in the last group, not the last group, but the one before that, there was council transport officers came along, but also officers from SPT came along just to talk to the group and find out the concerns, both locally and as a collective as well. So also in section 6, it was just to draw your attention to the opening of the Can Do Community Fund, which is basically allowing groups from out with the areas who've been identified as the Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivation to be able to apply for money up to £10,000. So community councils can apply for that money as well. And it's tackling different issues that come up in their areas, ideally in terms of how the money should be spent. So in conclusion, the partnerships are forming and having good discussions about their role and their inclusiveness. The Community Planning Partnership have invested in support for them to develop and the funds for them to better understand the needs of the residents in their area. There are also additional forms of investment made available to community activism in the area. So that's a very short sort of summary of the paper. So we're happy to take comments or questions.
Okay, thanks very much for your presentation, James. One of the things that I had discussed with, I can't remember the lady's name that came to the pre-agenda, was the fact that perhaps the councillors would like to see the minutes of the meetings. I think that would be helpful so that we can understand what these partnership people are actually saying and bringing to the table. It's probably the same things as we are ourselves. So it would be I think that would be of interest if that can be done and maybe put into the terms of reference. I think it's pretty new. So I think the councillors might welcome just to see the minutes so that we know what's happening in our area. If that's okay, thanks.
I just want to highlight as well, like I don't see that being a problem, but I would have to go back to the groups or for Clydesdale, for example, just to find out, that would be fine. To be honest, in terms of the paper, a lot of the information from the last meeting is, and previous meetings are sort of contained within that or summarised within that. As I say, it would have to be, because it's community led, they would ultimately make the decision. We're supporting the process of them running. So, but yeah, I can take that back in terms of in terms of having future minutes. The development session as well. There's every likelihood that the group may be keen to have councillor involvement.
Ross, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that. Could I ask about the community fund? I don't believe it's more information in the report, apart from groups can apply for up to 10,000. So is that groups with a constitution, or is there a particular project, or is there more information about what they have to apply for, what they have to do to apply for the money?
So basically, that you're talking about the Can Do Community Fund. Yeah, so that's a fund that's been distributed through basically the council. So what I can do is I can send out more information about it. So it's on the council website. So it's basically highlighting the groups that within the community partnership can apply for this money. It's to tackle various issues within the areas, as respective areas. I can send out more information about it. It's on, won't you?
Hi, Louise.
Hi, I was just to add that if there's any groups or organisations who'd be interested in finding out more about the Can Do Fund, what they can do is just send an email with a little brief about what project they think might fit into the community's inbox, which we could send over to you as well, and someone will pick it up and see if it's relevant for that fund. If not, then they'll get back in touch with the group and see if there's something more appropriate. But it's in general for things like sort of community engagement activities, or to find out about what something like the community would want. But what we'd do is be interested in having a conversation with the community first to see if it's most appropriate fund for them, and try and support them through that.
Okay, thanks, Louise. Councillor Logan?
Thanks very much, Chair, and thank you very much for the information today. What I would like to understand better for myself, I know a wee bit about it. I don't know everything about the setup, but how do we get out to the wide, or how are you getting out to the wider communities? Because like everything else, there's people who just know what's there and how to, access and become part of whatever's there, at that given time. So they will know how to get their funds or their act together to get the funds, etc. So are you continuing to actively look to get out beyond that again to other groups and various things? And I am always thinking, if we're dealing with, that's public purse money. So everybody in this room will have put their, paid their council taxes, etc. So it's public, it is the public's money that is getting, used for the various things, and that's fine. But are you with constituted groups, or is it or can you be an unconstituted group? And then who monitors, if you gave me, Eileen Logan, £10,000 to do whatever Eileen Logan and her group wanted, who monitors me to see that I have spent, my money wisely and in the correct fashion? I know we don't want to be, I'd never want to be too draconian, but we have to be careful. As I say, it is public purse money. So if you could let me know that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. A couple of points to that to answer your question. One, so the groups applying would require to be, in terms of the Can Do funds, would require to be constituted. And there would be scrutiny in terms of how the money's spent. The second part, where you were saying about reaching out to wider community, the answer is very much yes. And speaking on behalf of the group, the Clydesdale Community Partnership, but actively they are looking at how they reach out to communities that they don't have a voice. So as things stand, and which is, I've been in post for the last 9 months, and I've seen the growth in terms of the group. So it's gone from a very small number, probably 10 or 15 folk, and now we're talking about a group membership which takes in community councils, development trusts, and other, as I say, other area stakeholder groups. So the covering, as things stand, up 16 out of the 17 active community council areas, which is quite good, and it's grown. So now there's about 25 or 26 active members of the group. And also going forward, and I think the group are going to fall in line with what Cambuslang and Rutherglen do. There will be statutory partners supporting the community partnership. As I mentioned, it's really dependent on their priorities, but very much we're really keen, or I know the group are really keen, to have as many people around the table, because at the end of the day, this is a locality group, so they want to represent the whole of Clydesdale, and Louise's work as well. Like, she's in the long run, well, she's supporting groups as well, so they'll be represented in some way, shape or form. So yeah, it's talking about, as things stand in line. I'm meeting up with the chair next week, and we're going to discuss about any gaps. And there probably are still one or two gaps, but yeah, and very much this is a very inclusive group. So we're keen to have as many members as we possibly can.
Councillor Allison.
A quick one, Chair. Would it be possible to forward to the members a list of your membership so that we can identify maybe gaps in our own communities and encourage them to contact you?
Thanks, Councillor. Yes, what I could do is I can send you a list of groups that are involved at the moment. That's not a problem. I can send it to everyone. Because yeah, as I said, we're happy to have any assistance, because we are looking at making this as inclusive as possible. So yeah, I can send out just the names of all the groups. Obviously, there's some with personal emails within the group, but what I can do is I can highlight all the groups that are involved. Yeah, no problem.
No, I wasn't looking for contact details. Certainly who they are, so that if we're at a meeting and they're not a member, we can highlight contacting you directly. Yep, no problem.
Thank you very much for your report and for all your answers today, James and Louise. So if you'd like to leave, that is absolutely fine. We'll go on to do our next part of the agenda. Thanks very much. Thank you. So we're on to number 5, which is the community grant applications. We've got pages 17 to 20. I'll get Carol to sort this out with the declarations of interest. Thanks, Carol.
Thank you, Chair. So this is our regular community grants report that comes before committee. So we are looking for approval of the allocation of 9 community grants from the Clydesdale area within this report, with a total allocation, if approved, of £4,065, which would leave us a remaining balance of £17,600. Okay, so we have declaration of interest from Councillor Mars on item A and item E, and Councillor Gowland on item G. If we could perhaps have Councillor Mars leave the meeting at the moment, and we will deal with items A and E. Left the meeting.
Okay, Julia's left the meeting. So we've got A, Clydesdale Community Concert Band in Curluke, who's looking for, well, we're looking for the £1,000, which is eligible. And the recommendation is £600. Do we have an agreement for that? Or is anybody otherwise minded? Agreed? Great.
Seconded.
Thank you. And we're bringing
Item
E.
sorry, E. Yeah.
So we've got Lanark's main shed, who are looking for equipment, eligible for 1,000. Recommendation is £600. Is that agreed, or is anybody otherwise minded? Agreed?
Seconded.
Thank you.
If we can now get Councillor Gowland to leave, and we will deal with item G. Not as yet.
Just waiting Julia come back. Oh, Alec, you've got your hand up, I believe.
Sorry, I'd declare an interest in that one as well.
What one was that, Alec?
I think it's C, Carnworth Agricultural Society. If I'm looking at the right sheet anyway.
Yeah, aye. So we'll deal with that after
Sorry.
Ross. Is Julia back yet?
She is, yeah.
Right, okay. So we're on to the one that Ross has declared an interest on, which is Lesmahago Parish Historical Association. They're eligible for 600. Our recommendation is 360. Is that agreed, or is the MD otherwise minded? Agreed. I've got a seconder for that. Thank you. So we need to get Ross in and Alec out.
Councillor Allison, if I could ask if you could now leave the meeting, and we will deal with application C, and then we'll invite you back in.
Councillor Allison has left and Ross has arrived back. So we're on to C, which is Carnworth Agricultural Society for administration and publicity costs. So they're eligible for 1,000. We've recommended 600. Is anybody otherwise minded, or is that just agreed? Agreed? Yep.
Okay, seconded.
Thank you. Just waiting Councillor Allison coming back in. Right, that's Alec back.
He's not. The
No, he's
emails,
not
the
back.
email's been sent, but he hasn't rejoined.
Must be we sharing a sheep. Ah. We patiently wait.
You may know. Should we still have the other grants to deal with.
Nothing.
One's emailed them twice.
Right, okay. So we're just going to continue without Councillor Allison. So we're going to B, which is Live Well, Lived Bigger, Equipment Administration and Publicity Costs, eligible for 705, recommended 425. Is that agreed? Okay.
Seconded.
Okay, so we're on to D, Law OAP Welfare Association for an outing. 300 is eligible and we recommend 300. Is that agreed? F is Crawford John Heritage Venture Trust, which is for materials, administration and publicity costs. They're eligible for 300. The recommendation is 180. Is that agreed? Agreed.
Seconded.
So we're on to H, Scottish Old People's Welfare Committee, Douglas Branch, outing, entrance fees, administration and publicity costs. They're eligible for 429. The recommendation is 400. Is that agreed?
Seconded.
Thank you. I is ISCON, Scotland Limited, Lismahago, for equipment, materials, administration and publicity costs. Eligible for 999, recommended 600. Is that agreed?
Seconded.
Good, thank you. So that's the community grants dealt with. I have no notice of any urgent business, so I'd like to thank you for coming to the meeting today, and I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you.